All right, this is book 4, chapter 24 of Caesar. I'm not going to go through and explicitly tell you what all the translation is, but I thought I could walk you through, and some of the more confusing sentences, I may be able to help you out on how they go together. Good. So ot is a connecting word, and Barbary is your subject. And it's going to be a while before we get any adjectives that describe the Barbary or the verb that they do, so you're just going to have to hold on to that in your mind for a while. After Barbary, you have two ablative absolutes, from concilio to cognito and praemiso to ecedariis. Remember, ablative absolutes are a noun and a participle, both in the ablative case, and the most common type are with the noun having been verbed. You can also say things like after the noun was verbed, or because the noun was verbed, or when the noun was verbed. You have a lot of options, and you pick which one sounds the best. The second ablative absolute there, equitatu and ecedariis are your nouns. The participle here, praemiso, is supposed to agree with the noun, but here, since there's two nouns, and one of them singular, equitatu, and one of them's plural, ecedariis, our participle agrees with the one that's closest to it, and we're going to see that a lot in this this section. It's called attraction. Praemiso is attracted to the gender number of case of equitatu instead of ecedariis. Quo, plurumque, genere. Quo is a relative pronoun, and you might even want to take the genere before it. The type which, or you can take it out. Which kind, right? Which type, and then in proeliis uti consuerunt. Which type, and then here's your verb. Uti is the infinitive. The I at the end tells you it's a passive infinitive. Uti is in fact deponent. It means to use. So it looks passive, but you translate it actively, right? To use. Reliquiis coepis subsecuti nostros navibus egredi prohibebant. And there at the end we finally have our verb. What are the Barbary doing? Reliquis copiis is an ablative of accompaniment. This is just what it sounds like. It means something is accompanying someone else. So if you say, I go to the store with my family is an ablative of accompaniment. It's almost always with a preposition, so it's interesting that here there's no preposition. I mean, you always use cum. So like you said, cum familia, with my family. So they're doing something with these things. Subsecuti describes the Barbary. And again, sequor, sequi, secutus is deponent. So you can translate it actively even though it looks like it's a passive participle. Nostros is accusative. It's the thing they're prohibebanting. Egredi, like uti, it's a passive infinitive. All of our gredior words, gredior means to go, so we have progredior, egredior, ingredior. It means to go, so egredior means to go out. And then navibus is ablative of separation. So with separation you always say from. Alright, erat. This next part is pretty simple. Ob hos kalsos goes together. Remember, ob is a preposition, but it means sort of like quod. Summa difficultas goes together, and it's nominative. Quod naves, propter magnitudinem. Propter is a synonym of ob. They're both prepositions. They both take accusative. So hos kalsos is accusative, and magnitudinem is accusative. Nisi means if not, so the C is the if and the ni is that negative part. You can also say unless. Like, I will not do this if I don't get paid. I will not do this unless I get paid. In alto is a prepositional phrase. Alto, here, it gives you a note. It's substantive, which means it's an adjective used as a noun. We've seen it so many times in the Aeneid as the deep sea, that I'm sure that doesn't surprise you. But alto just means deep, but here it's used as a noun, which is called substantive. Constitui, once more, is a passive infinitive. A non-poterant is the verb. The subject is the naves. Alright, so the Romans are having some problems, which do not end while they're in Britain. Okay, so militibus, this section goes all the way to the other page where it's erat pugnandum. So we're going to have to kind of keep all of these elements on our mind to put them together, that they're all intertwining. And sometimes that can get difficult when you're translating, to try to put everything together in the right way, make sure you don't leave anything out, make sure it sounds like it's good English. That can all be difficult. Okay, so pugnandum and constituendum, I'm going backwards with these, and disiliendum, you'll notice they all have that nd in it. It's that gerund, nd. You think of the end of gerund. And the erat here, before pugnandum, goes with all of them to make it a gerund of obligation. That's where you get your must part. The book calls this a future passive periphrastic, which is the same way of saying gerundive of obligation, really. The thing that is obligated is always in the dative case, and it's called the dative agent, and that's where you're getting militibus. They're the person who has to do something. So in English we'd say the soldiers have to X. In Latin you'd say it was to be X'd by the soldiers. So in English, your militibus might even be your subject, but in Latin they're called the dative of agent. They're the agent of the gerund of obligation. Okay, so we'll just go through left to right and put all these things together. Autem, connecting word. Ignotis locis, the book translates for you. It can either be an ablative of place, which is easy and simple, or it can be an ablative absolute, because ignotis comes from a verb, so you can have a verb and a noun and an ablative. Impedibus manibus is definitely an ablative absolute, with the X having been wide, or when the X was wide, after the X was wide, since the X was wide, or X is your noun and Y is your verb. It might also be an ablative of manner. I like ablative absolutes, so I would like to consider it one. Magno et gravi onere armorum oppressis. Oppressis modifies militibus. It describes the soldiers. Remember, your is and your ibus go together very often. It's ablative or dative plural. Usually it's ablative plural. Here it's a dative, because it's dative of agent. They are oppressis by the onere, and magno and gravi describe the onere, and armorum tells you a little bit more description. It's that genitive plural orum. So, et de navibus disiliendum, which basically de navibus would be our ablative separation. Disiliendum, you have to translate with that obligation part. They must do something. Et influctibus is participle, right? Participial phrase. Constituendum, again, they must be doing the constituendum in. Et cum hostibus erat pugnandum. Cum hostibus is prepositional phrase, and then pugnandum. So there's a little bit of a parallelism going on here. De navibus disiliendum, influctibus constituendum, cum hostibus pugnandum. So participle phrase, gerund, prepositional. I'm getting my words mixed up. Prepositional phrase, gerund, prepositional phrase, gerund. Cum is a temporal cum clause that tells you when. So we are expecting also to see subjunctives after this. So when we get to a subjunctive, we shouldn't be surprised. Ili just is referring back to the British. We've been talking about the Romans, now we're talking about Ili, those guys, the ones that we were talking about earlier, not the most recent guys. Aut ex arido, aut paulum in aquam progressi, etc. Two outs, remember something special, right? Et means both something and something else. Neque means neither something nor something else. And so make sure you know what your out is. In aquam, prepositional phrase. Progressi, with that I on the end, is a passive infinitive. So hopefully you're getting a feel for finding your passive infinitives now. They end in an I. Progressi is our same, like we saw, egretti. Oh, I take all that back. I was totally thinking about infinitives too much. This is not a passive infinitive. Erase that if you wrote it down. This is the participle. Excuse me. It refers back to Ili. This is why Makistra needs to write things down as well. It's deponent, so instead of having that passive feeling that usually participles have, like having been verbed, this is an active, like having been verbing. And it's active feel. Omnibus membris expeditis is, that all goes together. Ibus is are ablative plural endings. This tells you sort of how they are doing their actions. Ablative of manner, probably. Notissimis locis, it's ablative of place. And here we're contrasting the British and the Romans. The Romans have to fight in really deep water. The British are they've just gone out a little bit into the water. The Romans are really way down. They have lots of armor. The British are unencumbered. Right? The Romans are in an unknown location. The British are familiar with the place that they're at. Audacter is really audaciter. We got rid of that middle syllable. Is an adverb. It tells you how the verb is being done. Tella is accusative, and coiecerent is our subjunctive in a cum clause. It's what those guys are doing, the British. Et equos insuefactos, which is another accusative, incitarent, another subjunctive. So they're coiecarenting their tellas, and they're incitarenting their equos insuefactos. Quibus rebus. Technically, you shouldn't start a sentence with a relative pronoun, but the Romans do it a lot. Cicero does it all the time. So you might even say like his, like with these things, not with which things, because it's not clear which thing you're talking about. So with these things, it basically refers back to the whole first sentence, or the sentence before this. Nostri praeteriti is your subject. Atque huius omnino generis pugnae imperiti. And imperiti is also your subject. So he's describing the Romans, our people, and they are praeteriti and imperiti. And imperiti means like unskilled or clumsy, or look in the book. It's the opposite of expert. Peritus means you've done something, all you have experience. So expert is the opposite of imperiti. So ex is like out, like you have experience out of this. Imperiti is you're not experienced. And in Latin it takes a genitive. It's like I'm experienced of teaching. You're experienced of being students. So they're not experienced of something. In omnino, we've seen a few times, remember, means they're completely or wholly and unexperienced, unskilled. And we don't know what they're doing yet. We still haven't gotten our verb. Non eandem alacritate ac studio quo in pedestribus uti proelis consuerant. Utebantur, that's our verb. Utebantur. Utebantur, we just saw the word uti, right, is the infinitive. This is the not infinitive, it's imperfect, ba, third person plural, ntur. Remember that this is the word to use, but the book suggests we use the word showing, and it's deponent. Not only is the word uti, utor, uti, usus, deponent, it also takes an ablative. So if I'm going to use a hammer, in Latin hammer would be ablative instead of accusative like it would sound in English. So we can see back to our eadem alacritate that that's ablative. Eadem is one of those words that the ea changes and the dem stays the same. So you say like istem, eadem, eidem. So the dem stays the same. You look for your endings before the dem part. So they were using eadem alacritate, or showing, and studio. Studio, be careful, it doesn't mean study. Quo refers back to the studio, and this is where we see some attraction. Eadem means the same, and in this sense it really means the same alacritate and the same studio. But it can't agree with both, so it agrees with the one it's closest to. Alacritate is feminine, so eadem has that feminine ending. Studio is masculine, and the quo, the which, refers back to both of them, but it can only agree with one, so it agrees with studio, because studio is the closest one. It's attracted to the masculine gender because of studio, where eadem is attracted to the feminine gender because of alacritate. And then we have a little relative clause, consuerant, and this is almost exactly like the second line here. We have, right, quo plerumque genere in proeliis uti consuerunt. Here we have in pedestribus uti proeliis consuerant. The in pedestribus probably should be taken after proeliis. They're battles on foot. So altogether you might say in infantry battles. And uti is our infinitive, passive, but deponent, so not passive at all. And that's why proeliis is ablative. It's after the uti, to use battles on foot. Alright, and that is 24. Let me know. Try to put all that together. Look in your book for the word meanings. Look in the book for the notes. And hopefully that will help you.